Welcome to Building People, Companies, and Careers, brought to you by AccruePartners. I'm Amy Pack.
And I'm Patty Comer. We're your host on this journey through the vibrant business landscape in the Queen City.
This podcast is an extension of our mission statement at AccruePartners, where we have spent over 20 years fostering connections and building relationships.
Whether you're a client, candidate, or business influencer in Charlotte, this podcast is for you.
We are immensely grateful for your support throughout our journey, and now through this podcast, we're excited to share the stories that have defined our path.
So let's dive in.
Let's do it.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Building People, Companies, and Careers, brought to you by AccruePartners. I'm your host, Patty Comer, and with me is Amy Pack, my sidekick.
Hello, everyone. It's great to be back for yet another episode.
We're the co-founders of AccruePartners, and in this podcast, we are bringing clients, internal team members, candidates, and anyone who shakes the business scene here in Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm so excited today. We have a young man with us by the name of Cam Miller. Do you go by Cameron or Cam?
You can call me Cam.
Cam. I like Cam. I mean, I guess Cam Newton, Cam Miller.
That's what everybody says down here, yep.
And Cam is a Gen Z financial analyst here in Charlotte, North Carolina. I actually found him with a bad habit I have called TikTok. And at night, I like to listen to TikTok for about an hour, and Cam showed up on my For You page, and I just fell in love with him. Cam is showcasing life in the Queen City as a Gen Z financial analyst, moving to Charlotte, and we have just been absolutely fascinated, kind of adoring, admiring the work that you're doing. It's super admiring what you're doing. So happy to have you. Thank you so much for trusting us to come in and talk to our audience today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I'm really excited to be here.
Well, great. At the beginning of each episode, Cam, we like to start out with a classic interview question. Tell me about yourself.
Yeah, sure. So I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I moved to Charlotte in July of 2023 for my financial analyst job in the banking industry. While I'm not at work, I am doing social media on the side. I talk about everything about living in Charlotte, budgeting, life as a financial analyst, with the goal of just reaching the people that are moving to Charlotte or that are thinking about moving cities that possibly might want to move here.
Okay, so our podcast is called Building People, Companies, and Careers. That's actually our tagline that we had 22 years ago when we started the company. When I tell you building people, companies, and careers, and you think about yourself,
Yep.
What does that mean to you and kind of where you are in your stage as a early talent type of person?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's a great mission, great tagline. Basically, the way I see it is you can't have a great company without great people. And without a great company, nobody can have a great career. So that's something, especially for myself, that I look for when I'm looking for a job, when I was looking for an internship, is what is a good company? What can they provide for me? But what can I give back to them as well? So it's this really deep relationship where you can't have one without the other. And I think what you guys do here is perfect because you find great people, you pair them with great companies, and that's what it's all about at the end of the day. Because great people will help that great company grow, and a great company will help that person grow in their career.
Yeah. I love that you saw the meaning of, you doing meaningful work too. It's not just what's in it for the company, but what's in it for you and your career. Tell us a little bit about where you're from, where you went to college, kind of like how'd you end up in finance? And then the ultimate question, like why Charlotte?
Yeah, that's a great question. So to give you the whole background, I actually started as a chemistry major at Kent State University, which is up near Cleveland, Ohio. I'm originally from a small town called Greensburg, Pennsylvania, a little bit southeast of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Went into chemistry, thought I was going to go to medical school, maybe go into research, found out that just wasn't my passion. When COVID happened, as everybody knows, some crazy stuff happened with the stock market. That sparked my interest in finance. So I started studying business. At Kent State, I got involved with a financial management group for the university. It was a student-led investment fund. We managed about $1.2 million for the school. So it was really cool. That's essentially what got me into pursuing the banking field. I applied to my current job and got an internship with them over the summer where I was doing wealth management. Basically, I was on track to become a financial advisor. I decided I didn't want to go that route because at 22, I didn't see myself being a good financial advisor. I just don't think that I have the knowledge to give to you for you to trust putting your money with me. if that makes sense. And so I was like, I want to go the corporate analyst route, get that experience, do some networking, and then eventually possibly work my way back into that field.
Interesting. Charlotte, so what's up? How'd you find this place?
Yes, so the Charlotte one. With my job, it was either New York City or Charlotte. I wanted to get away from the cold. I had always dreamed of coming south, so Charlotte was perfect. I knew nothing about it. I have drove through here going to vacations, and that was about all I knew.
So did you accept a job? Like, tell us about your process. Did you apply online, interview virtually? Did you ever come to Charlotte for an interview? Tell us about what that is for a recent college graduate now. What was that experience for you?
Yeah, so the experience for me was interesting. It was completely virtual. I had heard that a lot of people before me would do what's called super days, where the company would fly you out, but I never had any of that. I applied to everything online using LinkedIn, Indeed. A lot of times I just applied directly to the company website, and that's actually what I did for my current role, and I would highly recommend doing that. I think that's where you get your best outreach if you're not going through a staffing agency. So when I applied, it was a very long interview process. I think there were 3 or 4 rounds, but it was actually pretty much all over the phone, which kind of threw me off. You know, you're used to doing video calls, you would think face-to-face interaction, especially with some of these big companies they would want, but everything was done over the phone, which was actually very easy. It made the process kind of seamless. And going forward, I don't know if that's still the way that they continue to do it. I still believe there's a lot of virtual interviews that happen. So, but I'd expect both.
So tell us, like, once you got into that job and it was only phone interviews, which that's so interesting to me. I could see where that would eliminate bias if you didn't have a video to see someone. Did you get there and find out everybody else was hired by phone?
No. So at this company, they have a bunch of different ways they hire people. A lot of us were by the phone. Some people did have virtual interviews, but chances are if they had virtual ones, it was for a different program. I have a lot of friends that actually came in through a conference, which I wasn't even aware that the company did that. But I thought that's another great venue. So, you know, if you're out there job seeking, you should be looking for events that employers are at, because it might be a career fair where you get your job. You might just meet somebody that is able to bring you onto their team. And that's how I have a lot of friends.
Huh.
Yep.
It's so interesting. We our clients always video interview now in the COVID and in person. Typically, they have them into the facility to see it and make sure that's aligning to them. That's so unique. We really haven't heard that.
Did you do an internship in office, or is this your first time to be in an office working?
Yeah, I did an internship in the office.
Okay.
I've done several internships also based out of an office, hybrid. So the office wasn't new to me. It's a lot bigger now, I will say. There are a lot more people when you are working in Charlotte than there was when I did my internship out in Arizona. Arizona is obviously still a big city, but the office that I was in, it's not a main city for banking. So that's why it was a lot smaller.
Huh, interesting.
A lot of people your age coming out of school never had an opportunity to do an internship in an office, and they started not in an office, 100% virtual. So you're fortunate to have that, because a lot didn't, and there was a disadvantage to that.
100%. Yeah. I think when you come from something that's all remote, or even school, a classroom to an office is a very different setting. You know, that can really throw people off, and it's an adjustment period. Even if you're used to the office setting, coming from school, going right into the office, working full time, it's definitely an adjustment that every college student goes through, or even if you didn't go to college, when you go to work in an office, it's an adjustment. It takes time.
So once you started, what has been maybe the biggest surprise or the biggest impact since you've been in this role in the office, your first job out of college?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest surprises is the push for going back to the office. Because even when you're in the office, all of your meetings are going to be virtual. So that's kind of the biggest shock. I will say you still have some meetings where they try to, say if everybody could come in, that would be awesome. But in my generation, I think the way we see it is, we can do this all virtually. I think it's great to go into the office when you're new, because you build relationships. That's how you're going to eventually work your way up. But to still have everything that's online, when the person sitting in a cubicle next to you is like, wow, this is crazy. You know, he or she's right there. Why don't I just hop over there and talk to them? But you can't, because in the jobs that we do, you have to share your screen. So that one, it's one that you just get used to, and it's just the way it is. But that was definitely a big shock. And then another one is my teammates are spread across the country. So when you have a large corporation, you have people everywhere, even globally. I have people that I work with. And so that's another adjustment that you don't realize coming out of school. You know, you're used to all of these people in one location, but now you have to figure out how to work with people in different time zones. And that's when it can get messy.
Even for Gen X, setting up appointments with time zones and Outlook can really mess things up. Do you have that problem, or is it just a tech problem?
No. We have that problem too. It's funny because there's great benefits to it, right? You know, we have partners on the other side of the world that when we're sleeping, they're working. So when we come back in the morning, there's reports already essentially done that we can either go back and fix, edit, whatever. And it's nice to have that. But when you run into issues on their end where they weren't able to get something done or they ran into errors, then that pushes everybody back. And when you're on different time zones, you only have a little bit of overlap when you're trying to communicate, hey, how can we get this fixed together? So it's something you have to learn to work with.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. How many Gen Zs work in your environment? Like if you were to look at your team, how many Zs, Millennials, Xers, Boomers are on the team? Because we have 5 generations now in the workforce.
So my team is about 100 people.
Oh, wow.
So the breakdown's, I'd say, pretty evenly split. In my direct cubicle circumference, I'd say we're all pretty much Gen Z. We all sit together and hang out during the work days. The program class that I came in with, there was 2,500 of us company-wide. So that's all Gen Z for the most part. So we are a big part of their workforce.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
You seem to be very, what I would call, wise beyond your years for your age. Have you heard that before?
Thank you. I get it every now and then. Yes.
I do think you're wise beyond your years for your age. My son's 23. And when
I have a
think about the
21-year-old,
two,
and there would be no way.
I'm like, he's a hard worker, but anyway, what are some of the things that are important? I mean, what you find is important to you in the workplace as a Gen Z versus the other 100 that you work with? Are you all in alignment? What are some of the differences?
Yeah, I think the biggest one, the most prevalent, is the work flexibility. Whether that's working from home, you know, no matter what type of schedule that is, I think that's the big one that's on everybody's minds right now. Is the 3-day work week here to stay? Are we eventually going to get back to a 5-day work week? Nobody really knows.
You mean 5 days in office?
In office, yes. Sorry.
3 days a week is part-time.
Yes, 5 days in office. For me personally, I think having the flexibility of 3 days in office, 2 days from home is a great balance. I wouldn't want to go somewhere that doesn't have that type of flexibility. And then the company that I'm at is very fortunate. They're very understanding. We're very fortunate because they're very understanding of life. Whether it's for people my age, whether it's for people that have kids. If your kid has a baseball game that you need to go to at 4:00, go to your kid's baseball game, pick them up from school, do what you need to do. So I think that's something that you really need to consider when you're looking for an employer, and to really interview them to make sure that that's going to be a good fit for you. I don't want to speak for all of Gen Z. I like to think that we're all on the same page, but for me, I think that's the biggest one. You know, what are the benefits? What is the hybrid schedule? Can I work from home? Can I work fully remote? I think you're going to start to see a bigger push for the fully remote someday when it turns back into a not an employer's market, a employee's market. I think you're going to really start to see a push for that.
What are your friends telling you about the job market?
They are having a very difficult time finding jobs, whether it's an internship, whether it's a job. Both are very slim pickings. Right now, a lot of the major employers recruit 1 year out in the business field, especially for finance. So if you are a sophomore, you need to be applying for internships the summer after your sophomore year for your junior year. Your junior year summer, going into senior year, you need to be applying for a full-time job. And if you don't have one by the end of the fall semester of your senior year, it's going to be very, very tough.
Wow.
my friends that are looking for jobs or that are looking to change jobs, what they find is that people are recruiting for jobs that have 5 to 10 years of experience. So if you're entry level, even if you only have 1 or 2 years under your belt, it's very difficult to find a job, and it's very competitive because there's so many people that are looking. The best thing that I can tell people is if you're looking for a job, you need to be applying full time. Applying needs to be your full-time job. But that's what they're saying. It's a very, very tough field out there right now.
Yeah, I would confirm it's a tough market. So, it'll turn at some point. They just need to be productive and finding other things to do. And, when it does turn, I think people are going to be empathetic that they knew 2024 was a hard year. Yep. You're too young for this. How old were you in 2008?
2008, I would have been 7.
Okay. Well, in 2008, we were starving to death just like your generation is right now. Yeah. And eventually it'll turn. You just have to put your head down and realize that there is something just about time will solve some of these problems. But it is a tough market, or we can probably acknowledge that as well.
Yeah.
But we can help people in that transition, and we really do try to give interview prep skills and coaching skills. Or, hey, did you consider going online and taking an advanced Excel course with AI integration so you can showcase that in an interview? Maybe things that you know better than another person your age or experience set. There is a problem in general, people asking for more years of experience than required for the job. I kind of think it's interesting. There's like this backlash on, oh, you don't need education, right? Don't go to college. It'll all be okay. That's actually not true if you choose the wrong field. That does require college. And then you get people that go to college and then can't find something. So there's just right now a very disruptive kind of mentality. I think it's all going to flush out at the end, but employers asking for 5 years of experience for, something that's fairly entry level, that we push back a lot. When we get requisitions, they say, oh, I want 3 to 5 years of experience. I'm like, really? Would you consider 1? Would you consider an internship? And this to get the quality of communication. I mean, there's lots of soft skills that don't really represent, on a entry level resume that I think are important.
Yeah, and I think that's where employers that have these hard and fast rules, they're using AI, right? They're missing out on candidates that may be a year or two shy and have a lot of technology skills, but they're just looking at it, a very narrow scope. And I do think candidates, and maybe encourage your friends, they have to find ways to network into these companies. Yes, apply online is great in some instances, but there's other ways to get to those employers, whether it is their networking, LinkedIn messages, working with a firm, doing contract work in the interim to build up their skills. So certainly keep them encouraged.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And going back to the one point you said, LinkedIn, I don't think people understand how important it is. That is your virtual resume that people see everywhere. It's such an incredible tool that you need to make sure you're utilizing. And I talk to people every day that are like, they don't have a LinkedIn, or they haven't updated it in years. They have a picture that's 5 years old. That is something that is so important, because that is something that an employer might look at. You might find a recruiter that's looking for somebody, and even if you don't have an updated picture, but you have a great resume, that could be something that turns them away. And so that's one thing that I would say, if you're applying for your jobs, you need to have a LinkedIn updated.
Yeah. There's often, if not often, all the time, clients will look at the resume, go to the LinkedIn profile to make sure they line up. Yep. And it is shocking at times how often they don't.
Yeah.
It is number one important.
Yeah. You had talked about benefits earlier, and the remote working from home being super important for all of us. We want some flexibility, but we also have businesses that we want productive. What were some of the other benefits? And you also said something in the beginning about what the company's mission is. Yeah. We do hear that a lot from your generation, like alignment to mission. What was important for benefits, or what do you want employers to know? We have a lot of clients who listen to our podcast. What is important to you as a Gen Z in the benefit package? And then what about this mission statement comment that you made?
Yeah, so I'll start with the benefits package. I think one of the big ones you're seeing right now is the push for wellness, whether that's mental health, physical fitness. I think that's crucial. In Charlotte, we have a lot of different gyms, different physical activity classes, but they're very expensive. I know a lot of employers are starting to include a package where, hey, we'll pay for your gym membership, or we're sponsored by this gym. You can go work there for free. I think that's a big one that a lot of people are really starting to look for. As for the mission, I think people like to be involved. People need a sense of community. And that's something that if your company can provide that, that's how you keep people. No matter what type of initiative you want to push, you should try to hit everything across the spectrum to make sure you're including everybody and that there's something for everybody. Regardless of who you are, where you come from, at the company that I work for, there is something for you. And even if you don't think it directly aligns with you, all of those groups, all the initiatives that they have are very open, very welcoming. So you can join any of them, which I think is phenomenal. And I think that's how you find good people and you keep good people.
All right. What about the mission kind of thing? You applied to different jobs. How did you even know? Was this mission thing coming out of post-COVID? Like, how did that get into your mindset to care about somebody's mission?
Yeah, I think you want to work for a company that has the same mindset that you do, the same values. I think coming out of college, you don't look into the mission as much. At our age, you're just kind of looking for something that is going to put a paycheck on the table. When you get into these companies, though, and you see your friends at other companies, that's when you start to really see, oh, I'm either at a really good company with a good mission, or I'm at a company that doesn't necessarily have one. And you can tell just based off of, what people say. The word, I guess the word gets around on what your company is involved in, right? Does your company have a lot of volunteer activities? Is their mission to give back to the people that are their clients? That is the community that they're building up. My employer is very big on building up the Charlotte area. It always has been. So that's something that I think is pretty important for people that live here because they want to see their community grow. So yeah, right out of college, I don't think you're looking as much into the mission, which is something that you should be doing.
But I heard you say belonging, that you wanted to feel like you could belong in some place within that company outside of your skills, that there was a place for you to belong.
Yeah, and that's exactly what you should be doing when you're interviewing. Not only are you being interviewed, but you're interviewing the companies as well. So that's a question that you could ask them is, what kind of programs do you have that I can get involved in? Maybe you can take a leadership role in something. And that's how you really scout out what companies you're going to fit in at. They might have a program that if you're really big into, talking about mental health, a lot of these companies have a program like that. But if there's a company that doesn't, maybe you don't want to go there. But you could also see that as an opportunity to start that initiative at a company. Mm-hmm. Does that answer?
Yeah. So I'm curious, as a young professional who chose Charlotte, your TikTok talks a lot about moving to Charlotte. What's it like in Charlotte? Where all the apartments are in Charlotte. We all wonder who lives in all these damn apartments all over Charlotte.
Yep.
But somebody lives in all of these and they keep growing.
Yep.
What have been some of the shockers and ahas? Your TikTok, you do disclose like how many potholes can we possibly have in Charlotte?
Yep.
And I just heard you say gyms are terribly expensive.
Yep.
What was some of the surprises that were positive and make you feel like this might be home? And what are some things that you're like, these people got to get their act together?
Yes, that's a great question. So compared to Pittsburgh, Charlotte is booming. There's way more to do here. Way more restaurants, way more activities. There's something to always be involved in 24/7. Especially Charlotte has great weather. So if you want to be outside, there's no excuse to not be involved. Whether you do a run club, whether you're doing pickup volleyball, there's something here. One thing that is shocking is for as many people there are here, for as many restaurants, I personally don't think that there is a crazy good food scene. There's a lot of food, but not a lot of great food.
What is great food to you?
That's a tough question. So I think that a lot of the restaurants down here focus on your experience versus a big meal that.
So you're just a hungry young man that wants a lot of food for not a lot of money that tastes good.
Yes. Back in Pittsburgh, we have We have a lot of really good Italian food.
So North Italia is not doing it for you?
It's okay. I will say I was at one called Montebello in South
Yeah.
Park.
Yeah.
Phenomenal.
Yeah. That's where Gen X lives.
Yeah, that's very good. But I don't know. There's just something different when you come from cities like New York, Pittsburgh. They just have more of a culture ingrained to them.
Authentic.
Like an authentic feel.
yeah.
Whereas down here, they try to be authentic, but they just can't do it.
Yeah.
I think it'll get there.
Yeah.
They're about the presentation.
But they're about the presentation and how you're enjoying your time at the restaurant.
Yeah.
Which is not a bad thing.
It has revolutionized a lot since, I would say, the mid 2000s with Johnson and Wales putting their headquarters here. It's resulted in a lot of restaurant scene that we actually did not have. So while there might not be one that meets your palate in the way that you expect, there's a lot of options. But I hear you. I mean, Amy and I talk all the time. Sometimes post-COVID, the quality of the food is just so not great. We're like, damn, I can cook this at home. It tastes so much better than spending $200 to take your family to dinner.
Yeah.
So I hear you there. What? So the food scene. What is it? You said there's something always to do. I guess. What are some of the other highlights when you say young people, you need to check this out? Like,
I think Charlotte is such a young city, and that is going to be the biggest driver of why young people should check it out, because your community's here. One thing about Charlotte that I kind of found shocking is that everybody's always looking for friends. Even if you're well established here, everybody's looking to take in new people all the time. So
that's called Southern hospitality.
Yes. Yeah. And you don't get that up north, at least.
Okay.
So that would be my big reason, is like, if you're looking for a city where you want to come and you know you're going to make friends, this is the place.
Yeah, everybody's from somewhere else. We're all trying to figure it out. There's a 1% that you meet that's from Charlotte. I think our marketing manager in Victoria, our executive assistant. I mean, there's like just a few. So I appreciated that moving here. It was like, I can meet people because everybody's from somewhere and we're all looking for a friend. So I'm happy to hear that that's still the way.
Yeah, we always say it's the smallest, biggest city you'll ever meet.
It is.
And it is, the smallest, biggest city you'll ever meet. In fact, to Patty's point, it's the Southern hospitality. And, for the most part, everybody's super friendly and wanting to help others.
And I think what's interesting about that is you have all of these transplants coming in from other cities, but the city still maintains that Southern hospitality, even though these people are from all over. So I think that's very interesting. And then to add on to that, being that we're from all over, you still run into people that might be from your hometown or your same city. So that helps people bond too.
I do remember on TikTok, one of your episodes or vlogs was about you keep running into the same people. And we hear that a lot with our Gen Z and millennial crowd. Like the same people show up. And to be honest, in the staffing business, we always encourage our clients to look at reload candidates because sometimes it's the same names over and over. Even though we're a very large city, sometimes it just seems to be the same names over and over. Like, let's look outside the market. Let's see who wants to get here. Now, COVID has changed that with the real estate market. It's harder for us to move. And your generation, yes, we can move you for $2,500, get you here.
Yeah.
But a family and stuff, because the housing market's in a bit of a stalemate, it's hard for reloads right now on the employer side to be able to afford the reload and on the candidate side to get rid of their house. I mean, it's a thing.
With the relocation, I think employers have to remember that there's a lot of talent across the United States, across the globe. And I think with the technology that we have now too, I think employers should really, really start to consider having candidates that don't need to relocate, starting to trust your employees to get their job done from wherever. And so I think that's something that, could help out with those.
Yeah, it's just hard, to be honest. I
relocation.
mean, we're Gen X, and it is the trust thing. We're just built to be skeptical.
Yep.
And so trying to build a hybrid environment where everybody gets what they need done, but we're flexible, it's tough. And I think we're in some type of revolution.
Yeah, and I think, too, I always tell people this. They own all these buildings. If nobody was in them, their biggest asset would crumble, and then that would really impact the economy. So there's there's multiple factors associated with that.
100%. And it is not an easy problem to solve.
And we're not going to solve it.
No. I think you might start to see a lot of the buildings be turned into mixed use properties more than they already are. I know I've done readings on that.
Yeah.
That, you know, they say that that's a possibility, but the amount of money that it takes to transform those buildings into apartments from an office space is
Well, and some of them you can't even do it.
And some of them you can't.
Well,
Yeah.
and surprisingly, I was told by a real estate broker, because our space is up and we're shopping soon, the cheapest office space in Charlotte is uptown because no one wants to be there.
Yep.
So back to your point, they probably do need to look at that big arcade building and turn it into apartments and workspace altogether. Wouldn't it be nice to live on the 16th floor and go down to the 10th floor to work? You might actually get some more workers.
You actually probably would. Yeah.
And a free gym and a great Italian restaurant, and Cam would work there.
That's right. Yep. Yeah. That's a great point.
So tell us about your TikTok thing. And I know I found you one night in my For You page. And how did that happen for you? And what's the hope and desire? It's really fascinating. I've been so impressed.
Yeah, thank you. So it started out with me posting finance TikToks way back in December of 2022. So a year and a half ago. Found out that I really wasn't that into posting like financial news. That was before I was really doing budgeting. Then I tried to get into golf. Golf's one of my biggest passions. Didn't like doing that. It took away from the fun of going out to the course and enjoying my time. Well, I moved to Charlotte and I posted a video of Optimus Hall and it kind of went viral. And I was like, wow, I got to continue to pursue this. And at the time, I was just kind of doing it just to kind of chase views. I didn't really have a plan with it. I always knew like it could turn into something, but I didn't know what. And so now I do a little bit of budgeting. Obviously, I talk about the Charlotte lifestyle. That's my big one. And eventually, I think I want to turn it into some type of business. I'm not sure what. And obviously, that's going to be a conflict of interest potentially with my job because you can't put your time into both. They're both going to need
Attention.
You can put your time into both for a certain amount of time, but eventually one's going to have to become a priority. So that's the route I'd like to take it. I think social media is a perfect opportunity for people to grow their personal brand. And it's just a phenomenal business opportunity because you can sell a product anywhere in the world, all from your cell phone.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something that if people can wrap their heads around that and start building their personal brand early on, they could really set themselves up for a successful future.
What's something like that's happened to you with being social media famous or TikTok famous or that was just like a wild, like, give us something funny or interesting. Like what is something that happened to you?
So I cannot go anywhere in South End without pretty much being recognized.
So when I walked you around the office and we were fangirling you, you were used to that.
Yeah. So that the first time it happened, I was like, whoa. And it didn't just happen once. It happened back to back to back to back all in one night. And so now anytime I go to a bar or restaurant in South End, it's like, I can't believe that I'm actually showing up on all of these people's pages. But it's nice because they're all agreeing with me. They're like, you're so right. We love watching your content. And that to me is like, that's awesome. That's what it's all about.
Words of affirmation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that is shocking, especially because if you look at my Instagram, I only have about 9,000 followers, but my reach is 900,000 followers in the last 90 days.
Wow.
And so that's what's really important is who are you reaching? They don't necessarily need to follow you anymore, but they're getting your message. And when I see that they're getting my message in person because they're telling me, that's the biggest shocker.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like people are liking images as much anymore, but you're consuming the content. So I do think like the views, and I'll look at things and I'll be like, oh, they have 312,000 views, but then they'll be talking about millions of people saw my stuff. And so it must be the people liking versus the views.
Yeah, exactly. It's the people that continue to watch it. And, even if you don't follow, if you interact with the posts at all, maybe you watch it twice, maybe you just save it, that will continue to pop up on your Explore page, your For You page. So you don't need to follow anymore, and you're still seeing the same people.
Yeah, it's reading your behaviors. And so have you had anybody famous stalk you yet?
Not famous.
Just crazy girls in South End just stalking you?
No, I have a lot of good friends that are into the social media field that are
Okay.
way bigger than I am. A couple that do it full time, some in the finance realm, some lifestyle, a little bit of everything. I actually run a very small Charlotte creator club down here where we just kind of get together for drinks. We toss around ideas on new content and things like that. So
That's
that's
awesome.
my next venture to grow.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Great. Well, let's move into rapid fire because I
Sure.
think we've kind of drilled you to death and been, asking you lots of questions. We talked about the food scene in Charlotte, but do you have a favorite restaurant yet?
So I have a favorite restaurant because of my experience there, and I think they have really good burgers. It's called Moon Brew. I think everybody knows it. It's in Plaza Midwood. I know that's nothing fancy, but the owners there are phenomenal. They're great guys. I went there with my father one night, and it was just a phenomenal experience. I always go back there for a burger and a beer. It's simple,
Yeah. That's
quick, cheap meal.
I can't say that I've been there. Have you
I've
been there?
never even heard of
Okay,
it.
well,
no.
maybe we'll try
We'll
that.
have to go for it.
Go check it out sometime. They have a location out in Matthews, which I actually haven't been to yet, but
Do you even know how to get to that zip code?
I can get out there. Yeah, yeah, I can get around. That one, Matthew's pretty easy to get to. You just take.
How often do you drive versus light rail?
Yeah, so I do light rail to work. I use it pretty much just to get to work, or if I'm going to go into South End, go into a sporting event in Uptown, I'll use it. But I do still drive a lot.
I've seen you post about don't move to Charlotte without a car.
Yes.
Like people don't. I guess your perception might have been we were like a mini New York City and you didn't need a car. You need a car.
Yeah, I thought for sure that you'd be able to come down here and get to wherever you needed to go in a timely fashion without having a car, and that's just not the case. That's what I tell people when you're moving here. It's walkable in each neighborhood, right? So Uptown's walkable, South End's walkable, Plaza and Noda, it's all walkable. But you need a car to get to each of those unless you want to make it a 40-minute trip waiting for the light rail.
Or spend money on an Uber.
Spending money on an Uber.
Yeah, and you do a spreadsheet on how to spend money too. So
And yes, that's one that I really enjoy doing. Just teaching people how to understand what their salary is really going to come out to after taxes, because most people don't think about that.
do you get like DMs asking questions when you do those spreadsheets and how much money you spend?
All the time.
And what are they asking you?
Most of them are asking how they can get a job as a financial analyst, but
AccruePartners, if they're any good.
Yep, I'll send them your way. And then a lot of times they just ask, you have a $72,000 salary. How is that only $54,000 take home? And I have to explain to them, that's taxes. That comes, your employer's going to withhold taxes, and at the end of the day, you don't actually make that $72,000. And that could be generous sometimes, because if you're putting more into your 401k or you're paying for other benefits, it may be even less than that. And so that's something that you really have to prepare for when you're moving to a city, to make sure that you're not spending too much on rent thinking, hey, I'm going to have $6,000 a month, when really you're only going to have $4,000 coming in.
Yeah. And apartments are $1,700 to $2,200 approximately for a one bedroom.
Yeah, exactly.
That's kind of nuts.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
Like you said, though, you can't plan to spend 30% of your pay on your living.
No, you cannot. You should take 30% of what you're going to make or bring home after taxes.
Mm-hmm.
If you Google it and you listen to some financial gurus, they'll tell you the 30% of what your true salary is, but I don't believe in that. I'm no financial advisor, so this is not financial advice by any means, but take it for what
But
you
you're
will.
a smart one. Smart entry level, blazing the path.
Yeah. We're
So with
trying.
that being said, what is a saying that you're known for?
So I think that's a perfect entryway into my saying, which would be, don't go into debt, and understand where every penny goes that you spend. Whether you want to track your money using an app, writing it on a piece of paper every month, using my budget template, it doesn't matter, but I think you should understand where every penny goes. It only takes 10 minutes a week to budget. It's something that you just need to get in the habit of doing, and that's something that I'm constantly preaching to my audience, my friends, and that's something that I would say that I've definitely become known for, is just being good with money and
What
encouraging
app
others
do you
to
recommend?
have a lot of friends that use Rocket Money.
Okay.
That'd probably be the big one that I'd go and use.
So I
Awesome.
have to ask, were you raised that way, or was this just an interest into finance and then you've just kind of taken that and really dialed into it?
I was raised that way, definitely. My parents have always taught me to be, frugal. And then once I got into the finance field, I really started getting into the numbers with it, especially with TikTok and Instagram now. There's so many financial gurus that
Yeah.
are showing you how to save money. So that really got me into it. But at the end of the day, it does go back to my upbringing.
Yeah.
So tell us what your handle is on TikTok, Instagram, so people can find you at the end of this podcast. And
Yeah. So my TikTok is the Cameron Miller. And then my Instagram is at clt.thecameronmiller.
okay.
I would love to be able to get those two the same, but somebody else on Instagram has the Cameron Miller. So I can't get that
And
yet.
have you approached him about buying it?
It's an account that hasn't been used. It's
Oh,
probably one
lovely.
of those that's forgotten about.
It's
so.
probably a bot, and if we can find out who owns it, you might be able to buy it.
Well, yeah, that too. So if I can get it, I think that would be perfect.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm so thankful you came and that you just popped up in my TikTok. I came to work the next day. I'd been texting everybody, have you seen this financial analyst? He's so cool. So we're blessed to have you today as a member of our community in Charlotte, and you're doing great things to make our city proud. And you have just a magnificent future ahead of you. We're very proud of you.
I appreciate it. Well, thank you for having me on. This was a blast. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it.
Thanks.